This is the Basketball Show with Shane the Hammer Heel. What they gonna say next?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Basketball Show. I'm Shane Hill and we're brought to you by TCL Mobile, 2K and Bet with Joel. And yet again, no JoJo. She's on a flight from New York to Boston. I think she's never coming home again, but we're lucky enough to have the best in the business from News Corp, Matt Lowe. Welcome, mate.
Thank you for having me, Shane.
Yeah, going to be a huge show. So much to talk about. We start with condolences. Shane Warne, one of the greatest sports people we've ever seen. Sad day. Lucky enough to spend a bit of time with him growing up, and what a champion and sad day.
Oh, absolutely. I think everyone felt the same way on early hours of Saturday morning, waking up, and the great man's no longer here, but plenty of fantastic stories the last couple of days. He's left a legacy.
And some of the memories. Geez, he lived 10 lifetimes, didn't he? So thoughts go out to his family. But now it's time for the starting five, brought to you by TCL Mobile. All right, plenty to get through, mate. The first one, Illawarra top four. Everyone had sort of written them off, thinking they were that poor cousin of the top five, but big win against Southeast Melbourne.
Oh, they were fantastic, Shane. And you could see Goorjian, the conviction in his face, the fist pump afterwards. But his team played with effort, particularly on the defensive end. Xavier Rath-and-Mays has come under some question marks, and I thought he was terrific. And Jessup was awesome. DeWatt Reath in the middle. I think the Hawks showed that they can potentially be a team that can contend for the championship. There's Perth and Melbourne United, in my mind, are still above them. But with Goorjian and
Sydney.
We forget about Sydney.
Geez, you've written Sydney. Don't tell me you've written Sydney off again.
Not quite yet. No. They've been terrific. They have been terrific. Okay. But there will be a battle for the four. But on the Hawks, a little bit. Yeah.
Does that put pressure on Southeast Melbourne now? Are they the team that might come back? I know Andrew Bogut said it a couple of weeks ago, and he copped a bit of wrath, didn't he, from the Melbourneites?
Absolutely. The Melbourne, they were filthy, the Phoenix fans and the club. But I think he makes a good point. The Hawks are surging. Your Kings, as you said, like they're a team that I think can contend.
They're as talented as they're the most talented team in the league.
Well, one CEO told me that. He said they're the most talented team, and if they don't win, I'd be shocked. But on your answer on the Phoenix, they're under pressure because defensively there are some concerns.
Yep. And
I think if the Hawks can fix that up, then the Phoenix are in some trouble because the Kings will keep winning. They got a good draw.
It's tight, very, very tight. What about Joe Chi? Talk about him re-signing.
Yeah,
Have they got value from him this year?
I think that's the $1 million question. Like, I think not.
What sort of money is he on?
He'd be on, I don't know specifically, but he'd be on decent money.
What have you heard?
It'd be north of 400,000.
Oh, way north, right?
Way north, and he's a big name out of China.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, he's a beast in the middle, but defensively, particularly on the perimeter, there's a concern. It forces a Phoenix to change up their side. Brandon Ashley's come in and he plays more minutes, and they can't trust him out there. And there are talks to re-sign him, but do you think that's...
Well, is there any benefits coming back off the court for the money they spent? Having such a big Chinese player in the market.
Absolutely.
Are there benefits? Are they getting anything back for that?
That would be a question for Tommy Greer in terms of the actual benefit, but I no doubt they've had benefit, but whether it translates to actual dollars, that's the question mark. And I just think if they want to compete moving forward, I don't know if that's the move they need to make.
They need to fix their D. I know that, and it's been bad for a few years. All right, topic 4, the World Cup was drawn. Michele Timms, Lauren Jackson. We had royalty there. Geez, tough draw. I gave it to Timsy on the night. I was on the panel because she had one job to do, Timsy, and we're going to speak to her later on the show. But gee, she pulled a hard pull for us.
Yeah. Look, it will be extremely difficult. That group is the group of death compared to the other side. And then, they've got to finish at least top 3 to avoid the US potentially. And if, as we know, the US...
Well, France, Japan and Serbia all finished above Australia. They're in our pool. We're capable of beating any of those teams, no doubt. But they're tough games. Normally you get a couple of freebies at the Olympics where you're playing, against one of these other countries that we just dominate, that are 20 in the world or, something like that. We don't have that, but definitely have to finish top 3.
Yeah, I think they can do it, but home soil will help, hopefully.
Yeah, it's exciting times regardless. The last point, Dyson Daniels, another triple-double. He's been incredible.
Yeah, so good. He was awesome at that All-Stars weekend as well. And now, recently, he's just had a triple-double. He's climbing as high as 6 in some mock drafts. That's where Josh Giddey went last year. I think he'll go around there. I think he'll shock a few people.
I think the fact that Giddey has been so successful, and you look at Dyson Daniels, another big point guard. He's got more of a defensive element to his game and NBA ready from that part compared to Josh Giddey at the offensive end. But exciting. I reckon, 6 to 10 for sure.
Oh, yeah. Pick. And I can't wait for Paris. Put him in that team.
Bring him into the Boomers. Yeah. Oh, Goorjian must be salivating. All right, good stuff. That's our starting 5.
Breaking all the big news in basketball with Matt Logue.
All right, mate, big topic to start with. LeBron's son, Bronny James. Now, talk to us about him in the NBL potentially.
Well, yeah, we do say potentially, but Bronny James he's only 17. He's playing high school basketball in California, but there is a push from the NBL to present to him that you should be an NBL next star over college, over the G League, and it's real. I've spoken to NBL people, and they've said they will have a chat to him and at least say to him, "Hey, look what LaMelo Ball did." Now,
look at Josh Giddey.
Look at Josh Giddey. I think for his development, it wouldn't hurt him to come here. I think it's better than college. I think it's potentially better than the G League, but it just depends on what happens, because they're saying LeBron James wants to play with his son. I think that'll be once Bronny gets to the NBA. But that, my understanding,
Shane,
could be
he's
a
not
while.
coming to play for the Sydney Kings or someone?
Well,
hey,
please.
That'd be nice.
That would be nice.
Is he that good?
Well,
there's talk of him going. Kentucky are trying to recruit him.
Yep.
One of the NBA execs sort of said maybe not as good if his name wasn't James. He wouldn't be ranked or talked about the same way, which is probably pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But is he good?
I think he's good, but I think the scout potentially makes a good point that being LeBron James' son does get a lot of attention that maybe other players who are better doesn't get. Yep. But in terms of his development, if he's not ready for the NBA yet, then I think coming to the NBL would be a great life experience. And imagine the headlines there, LeBron James' son. So they've got to try. They've at least got to try.
He's no Dyson Daniels, no doubt about that, but hopefully he gets to the NBL. What about Simon Mitchell? Talk about him re-signing at the Phoenix.
Yeah, well, we spoke about the Phoenix earlier, that they're in some trouble in terms of potentially not making the 4. But my understanding is Simon Mitchell's going nowhere. The club are in the process and they will re-sign him for a couple of years, so he'll be at the Phoenix long term. That's great for them. Some people have got some question marks, particularly defensively around the Phoenix, but they're putting their faith in what he's done and been able to build in a short period of time.
I like the stability of what they're trying to do, and that means that Goorjian probably will stay at Illawarra, because there was a bit of speculation last year.
Yeah.
Goorjian's partner Amanda is in Melbourne, and there's always speculation about Goorj.
The great man. Well, and there always will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, my understanding is Goorjian, they're in discussions. He won't do anything until the postseason. That's always been his tradition, but he's going nowhere. I think the Hawks are building. They've re-signed Froling. My understanding is Reath. They're in the process of re-signing him as well.
Surely not for the same money. He came on big money this year, right? Reath?
Big dollars, yeah, big dollars. And he has been inconsistent.
Yeah, he hasn't earned the dollars that he's on. I've heard big dollars.
And
he's a good player. But surely they've renegotiated that.
Well, they're in the process of negotiating it at the moment, and my understanding is he's not going to go. He will stay at the Hawks, but you're right, there could be a cut there. But the big picture is that Goorjian, he wants to be at the Hawks long term, and I think that's a good thing for the league.
Great thing for the Hawks, and good signing too with Sam Froling, superstar of the future. Yep.
Beautiful. Well, it's another big week as always, mate. But we'll keep the year down onto the ground, because I think this finals run home is going to be close. So there'll be more news to come. Don't you?
Huge. Well, it's one of my favourite segments on the basketball show. It's In Depth, brought to you by 2K. And the word legend is thrown around way too much for my liking. But this week, we really do have a legend of the game. Please welcome Michele Timms. Now, Timmsy, I've got to brag for you because you're a 2-time Hall of Famer. You've won medals at the Olympics and World Cup, and you're a trailblazer. You're the first woman to go from Australia into the WNBA. What a career you had, mate.
Well, that was a much nicer intro than the other night, Hammer, when you canned me, saying, what sort of a draw? You obviously haven't handled balls for a while, you said, or something like that.
Well, let's go straight to that, mate, because you had one job, and you did a great job, and you held up the fort until you actually drew out the balls and you put us in the pool of death. That was a tough pool that we're in, right?
Yeah, no, it is. But you know what? To be the best, you got to beat the best. And the way I figure it, Hammer, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you will, but, you know, those games are going to harden us. And I think we just need to, like, I'm looking at that draw and thinking that I'm loading up and I'm looking at Nigeria and Canada as my 2 games I 100% have to get. And then I have to try and, you know, get one of those other games. So it is a tough pool, but I think it will be the better for it when it comes to crossovers.
The only thing I'd say about that, though, Timms, I agree with everything you're saying. And let's face it, you've won Olympic medals and I haven't, and World Cup medals. But yeah, we have to beat Nigeria and Canada, but we have to finish in the top 3 because if we finish 4th, we're crossing over against the States. So no one wants to see that. But that means we've got to beat Serbia, Japan, and France, like 3 very, very good teams. So my point more, and we're capable of beating all those teams, no doubt about it. But gee whiz, when I look at the other pool, there's a couple of like to be confirmed, going to be Brazil or Puerto Rico or some terrible team, or Korea. Like,
look,
gee
I'll
whiz.
butt in right now.
You could start and we'll beat Korea.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. You look, you're absolutely right. My thing was that we don't want to finish 4th because we'll play the USA. We don't want to finish 3rd. I'm saying we have to finish 1 or 2, and I think 1 might be out of our reach, but we've got to go for that 2nd spot to try and, you know, go that little bit further and deeper into the tournament. Because, look, so, you know, like not a lot has been said about China, and just having been part of their program for about 8 years and watching them play at the recent qualifications, they've had a changeover of coach, and you know, oh, there I am. What a spunk. Jeez, I look like, they were the good old days. I had, look, there's Si Jing, who was MVP of that tournament. She plays at 3-4, wherever you want to play her. And they've got 2 terrific big young kids and a really good point guard in Leeway. So I'm just as scared for us to go ahead and finish 3rd as finishing 4th and facing the USA. So I really reckon we've got to finish in that either 1 or 2 spot. But boy,
that photo, Timsy, I've got to say, just reminded me a little bit of myself back in the day. And it reminds me of every time I went on the road in the warm-ups or whatever, they used to yell out to me, Timsy, Timsy.
I know. How stupid. I know, how ridiculous, eh? And then when I was coaching with you, everyone would give you heaps behind the bench. And it's like, mate, he's had this for 10, 15 years. I think he's used to it by now. Come up with someone a bit fresh.
We can get through that. Hey, what sort of advantage have we got? Home soil, you've done it in 94 at the World Cup and the 2000 Olympics. Big advantage. And how exciting is it going to be to have the World Cup here?
Oh, it's going to be just crazy. You know, and the great thing about Australia is that we're a real melting pot. So it's just not going to be parochial Aussies. There's going to be a real great blend. I remember in Oz 94, it was insane with the Brazilians with their drums and clackers, and the Chinese with their chants. So it's going to be, it's not just going to be the Aussies, it's going to be the melting pot of Australia there, and just cheering not only the Aussies on, but other teams. So the atmosphere is going to be something that I would go so far as to say none of those girls would have experienced in Australia, that's for sure. But it's definitely going to help them. It's going to be interesting with the lead up, you know. I've heard, and you'd probably know this better because Shyla is directly involved, but I've heard there's going to be 15 games warm up, and which is fantastic. But only problem there is that there's probably 15 games involved with no head coach and not 2 assistant coach part of the program. And I think that's a real shame. You know, I'm not sure how many games they're going to be involved with in Sandy and Olaf, And I heard Paul Goris is an assistant coach over in the WNBA this upcoming season as well. So it'll be left to Cheryl Chambers to do the bulk of the coaching, unless, as I said, I'm not privy to the plans of where they're taking the team. I suspect they'll probably go now to New York and have a camp and then head off to Europe and play some games. But the beauty of playing in your own backyard is that you shouldn't have to, go and venture to the other side of the world to play. And the team should be coming down here and trying to play as many games as they can, especially leading into it.
Yeah. They should be blooding somebody like Shannon Seabohm too.
Well, I thought that'd be like a no. Like, I would be highly surprised if Shannon wasn't involved. I rate Shannon extremely high. He's won 2 gold medals with junior teams, and he's just a super coach. And I would be very surprised if he's not an assistant coach with Cheryl running the show. But whatever happens, Hammer, in my opinion, we need to really, get back to being a great defensive team like in the good old days, and need somebody in there who's going to drive that home while the head coach and assistant coach are away. And it's not a job that, you'd love the job, but it's a very hard job, yourself. It's just not the same when the assistant coach takes the helm. And I feel for some of the players who are probably out there who are vying for spots, trying to get more court time or what have you. It's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. As I said, I'm not quite sure how that's going to go.
Timsy, obviously it's a new era for the Opals, like no Liz Cambage. We saw what happened at the Olympics. But who are you looking forward to seeing from a breakout tournament? Like, who is the player you think needs to have a big one for the Aussies to defy the odds?
I think that's where we go wrong, picking out one player. I think this is a blue collar team, and I'm thinking this is a team not there's not one or two players that is going to carry this team. If we're to be successful, we've got to rely on everybody. And yeah, you could pull out Talbot, you could say Ellen, or whatever, or Sammy, but it's not. I think if we go that route, we're making a big mistake. This needs to be a total team effort, and we need to be able to reach down the bench and have faith in the kids on the bench and get them on the court. And when there's subs made, that we don't lose anything. So I'm not going to say that we need one or two players to step up. I think it's got to be we need to be blue collar about this and everybody contribute.
Last question, Timsy. How do you look at modern day basketball? I reckon you would have thrived if you were still playing today.
You know what? They're super athletic, aren't they? And it's a totally different style of game. One that, maybe I would have liked it, coming down and shooting the three and having the green light on the break, although Tommy Marr let me do that a lot when I played for the Spectres. So, it's a really different style of game, that's for sure. Super dynamic and a lot more free ball.
Well, Timsy, we appreciate you coming on. You've really, have put Australia on the map for women's basketball, and having 3 daughters myself, I know a lot of young players look up to you. So, and well done for your academy and all the great work you and Tom Marr are doing down there in Melbourne, creating the next superstars in basketball as well. And hopefully we get to hear you commentate during the World Cup, because that would be a good thing. And any chance you could commentate for the WNBL, why don't you do that?
No, I have been asked. Don't be rude, but I have been asked. But I just don't think I'm good enough. So, but anyway, we'll see. Hopefully something, either I improve or I get a bit more confidence. I lack confidence, Hammer. I know you're very surprised about that. But I thought maybe you and I could have a show during the World Cup, mate.
Bring it on.
Bounce off each other pretty well.
We will be ready, and we may look into that. But appreciate your time, Timsy, as usual. And thanks for coming on, mate.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, it's that time again for crystal gazing, and let's welcome in the NBL's favourite courtside commentator, Mr. Derek Rucker.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Doing a good job, mate, sideline. Don't worry about that. You safe up there with the floods?
Very safe, very safe. And, the sun is out today and ready to win this round of crystal gazing. I got to make my push now for the second half of the season.
Well, you have to, because I'm on top, and Matty Logue, he didn't put his tips in, so he got the away teams, and he is dead last. We'll come to you first, D. We've got Melbourne hosting the Perth Wildcats. This will be a huge one.
I was more inclined to go strongly on Melbourne, but Perth looked good on the weekend. And, I think they're also going to make their second half push now. But I've got Melbourne taking this one by about 5 to 6 points. They were scrappy against Brisbane. They're due for a big game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Matty, over to you. We've got Cairns hosting Tasmania.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Cairns here. I think while Tasmania have been very good and Scott Roth deserves enormous praise, I think Cairns showed enough glimpses against the Kings on the weekend that if they're at home, I think they can win a close one.
I'm with you on that one. D?
Ooh, yeah, I think I'll go with the same there. It's tough, but I agree with Matt.
Your boys, Brisbane, mate, they are not looking good. They host Perth.
Yeah, I thought they were okay the other day against Melbourne, but you always knew Melbourne were going to pull away with that game. And this is a tougher assignment right here. Perth Wildcats, I've got them taking this game. I'll be courtside, Hammer, so I'll be able to give you all the lowdown on what's going on. Perth by 11.
I like it. I'm with you. Matty, New Zealand host Adelaide. What is going on with Adelaide?
Yeah, plenty on and off the court. I'm going to tip them in this one though. I think New Zealand, it's a basket case. It's a write-off of a season again. Obviously, a number of factors, but I think Adelaide showed some glimpses over the weekend, and they didn't get the win. But I think that they'll win this one.
I'm going for New Zealand in an upset on that one. Derek, Tassie hosts the Illawarra Hawks, who bounced back to form on the weekend.
Intriguing game, this one, but I think Illawarra are going to continue. They looked a little bit better, I thought, yesterday against Southeast Melbourne, a little bit better organized defensively, significantly better. And I think that game yesterday was a blueprint of how Goorj would like to carry on for the rest of the season into the playoffs, should they get there.
Yeah, and the game of the round, Southeast Melbourne take on Melbourne United. Packed house, plenty of passion in this one, Matty. Who you got?
Yeah, they're expecting a crowd over 7,000 as well.
Well, that's a couple behind Sydney's 9,000 on the weekend.
You can't beat Sydney, Shane. You never can beat Sydney.
They're just facts, mate. I'm just spitting facts. That's it.
Look, you can't go past Melbourne United unless the Phoenix can dramatically improve their defence, and that's the United's trademark. To me, United win this game. They're just mentally tougher. Derek?
I'm going for Southeast Melbourne in this one. I think the Perth game will take a little bit out of United, and Southeast Melbourne will be revved up. And I think they got this game.
Well, I think they're going to need to, though, D, because they're the team that look like they're a bit vulnerable going for that top four.
You're right. And last week on the show, I said that Illawarra Southeast Melbourne game was kind of an indicator if Phoenix were a true championship team. And I think they failed that test yesterday.
They certainly did. Cairns host the red-hot Sydney Kings. Both you guys hate even hearing that.
No, I'm happy with it. Matt's more hateful than I am, but I think I like watching Jalen Adams. He's won me over big time. Yeah. And they look like they're flowing well, and they'll handle Cairns up in Cairns, although it won't be easy, Hammer.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're the most talented team in the league and very balanced. Everyone was talking about they needed a big. There was no way they needed a big. They've got that much firepower now with Chase Buford's offense. They're looking good. New Zealand hosts Perth. Surely this is just like a forfeit.
Basically, we'll just go Perth. Like poor old New Zealand. Yeah, as Derek said, Perth will be ramping up and they're going to make a big challenge.
All right. Well, that's crystal gazing. I look forward to see next week's ladder. Thanks, fellas.
All right.
All right, points made, brought to you by Bet with Joel and Derek. Oh, I tell you, sometimes I'm a bit hard on LeBron, but I do like LeBron. Just don't like him as GM. 56 points, though. Oh, my goodness. That is unbelievable for a man of his age, that not only the ability to go and get 56, but the desire to year after year and week after week be able to step up and be able to get it done.
And especially given the context of the season, they have been getting dragged through the media. LeBron's been getting ripped, and we know the troubles Westbrook has gone through. And, you know, for LeBron to come out after being embarrassed by the Pelicans and the Clippers to face up against Golden State, and in a game in which they were down, they needed every single one of those 56 points by LeBron, and they knocked off the Warriors, Hammer, who look like they're struggling now.
Yeah, and what do you put that down to? It was amazing earlier in the year before Thompson came back. Everyone was talking about them as the title favourites, really. Who's going to stop Steph and the Warriors? Clay's come back. What's gone wrong?
Well, it's the irony of basketball and team sport. Draymond Green isn't their best player, but he's their most important, despite what all the accolades that Steph and Clay get. Draymond is the one that drives that thing on both ends of the floor. And we can see Steph and Clay's three-point percentages are way down. I think Steph is now shooting 37% from the three. I think Clay is around 38. Defensively, they don't look the same. And look, Draymond's got a back injury, so there's really no timetable on when he's going to be able to get back. But they need him back desperately because they're sliding down, and Phoenix is continuing to win games without Chris Paul and Booker.
Yeah, incredible stuff by Phoenix. And, you still think they can win the West?
Either one of those teams can win it, Golden State or Phoenix. And Golden State, once they come back, we know that they can run off 12, 13 games in a row once Draymond comes back. But certainly their championship odds have gone way down. Who else comes out of the West, though, other than Phoenix? I don't think there's any other real team in there. So it's ultimately Golden State and Phoenix to come out of the West.
Yeah, the competition's in the East. Don't worry about that. And I'm still on Milwaukee. Let's talk about Ben Simmons. Hopefully he's going to be back in the next couple of weeks. But he's been doing a fair bit of work on his shooting, and so he should be.
Yeah, and look, there's some footage that's been coming out lately. But today I thought there was some really good footage that showed you for the first time what his shot looks like from the front. And Shane, when you have a look at it, you'll be able to break it down and see that it is really, really dysfunctional. The wrist snaps the wrong way. His follow through is not at the basket. The elbow's out of position. And there's a nice juxtaposition actually between him working on his shooting and LaMarcus Aldridge working on his shooting in the foreground. And I think, man, there's more work to be done than I thought, Shane. And you know how tedious it is to teach shooting. He's just got to buckle down with one coach, one guy, Shane.
But what's he been doing, mate? Like, what? Why are we talking about this now? He hasn't played basketball for almost a year. How has he not got this right?
I just don't think he's had the right coach with him. And now, I think he's trying to get Kyle Korver in there. But I agree. And look, this is a matter of priorities. What you and I deem to be important in his game, he obviously does not. And there's been a slight let off at each stop he goes to. Doc Rivers said, we don't need Ben to be shooting the ball that much. And now there's kind of a built-in excuse at Brooklyn. He's got all these other guys around him. We don't need him to be shooting the ball that much. I disagree.
Well, you still want to be working on your trade the whole time. You always want to improve on what you're doing to be the best version of yourself. And even though he's never going to be Steph Curry, I just assumed that he was going away, putting the time in to get the fundamentals, something that you and I teach kids on a day-to-day basis of how to actually get some rotation on the ball, have all of that lined up so you have some sort of chance of making a couple of shots. And free throws, by the way. Free throws.
That's the big one. Can you hit free throws in the clutch in playoff context? That's the big one for me.
All right, let's see how it plays out. Points made, brought to you by Bet with Joel. Well, that's all we've got time for, mate. Another big episode of the Basketball Show. What do you look forward to this week?
Melbourne United, 2 big games. Thursday, Perth. Sunday, Phoenix. Season defining. If they win those two, there's the minor premiership wrapped up.
And I'm in the hub. I might even be calling one of those. That's all we've got time for. Thanks to our sponsors, TCL Mobile, 2K, and Bet with Joel. We'll see you next week.
This is a co-production by News Corp Australia and Closer Sport.